Hello again. Here we are in module 3, which is chapter 3 of this course. And we are going to get started. This is backgrounds here on Zoom. This is called one of the nature backgrounds. I know it looks like dark, but there it is. There's the moon. What's it doing in my house? I don't know. But there it is. So let's get started. Always give me these other things over here. Oh, don't want that. Okay, when I get done clicking here, we'll be ready to go. I think this is chapter 3, public fire and life safety education programs. All right. We're going to identify the steps in public fire education planning, identify partnerships between civic organizations and fire service professionals, and how the message of fire prevention is disseminated by these partnerships. Identify methods to measure the effectiveness in fire and life safety education in the schools. And we're going to start with an overview here about non-residential and residential. So basically, kind of like more or less at home or at work, most people think at home you're the safest you can possibly be. When it comes to fires, that's not necessarily so. Non-residential buildings, and this was a couple of years back, they had an average of 135 deaths and 3,050 injuries per year. The residential buildings, 2,560 deaths and 13,000 injuries per year. Now, if you think about that for a little bit, you'll find in non-residential businesses, companies, public building, that type of thing, they've had a long history of fire safety and sprinklers and everything, training and fire extinguishers, everything else. So that makes a little bit of sense when you think about it. America Burning was a report from the National Commission on Fire Prevention and Control, and it said, among the many measures that can be taken to reduce fire losses, perhaps none is more important than educating people about fire. Makes a little sense, doesn't it? So this is the scope of the fire and life safety education programs. Fire and life safety education planned activities focused on promoting, presenting, and making available information intended to change behavior and reduce the risk of fire and other injury-causing events in the community. And why are these lumped together, fire and life safety? Because they kind of go hand in hand, and almost all fire departments now are not just putting out fires. They're doing a lot of other things, including EMTs and that type of thing. So they kind of are hand in hand. And that's why they're together a lot of times. A community analysis, that's a process that identifies fire and life safety problems and the demographic characteristics of those at risk in the community. It's kind of like you got to know your audience. Target groups are members of a population who are the focus of a specific fire safety message. In other words, you want to give a different message to somebody that's in second and third grade than you would to an adult. Public fire education planning efforts involved in the consideration and implementation of a program to raise awareness, to teach new fire safety skills, including analyzing problems, developing partnerships, creating strategies to address priorities, implementing plans, and of course, evaluating the progress. Public fire safety education includes fire prevention, fire reaction, burn awareness, wildfire mitigation. Life safety education is injury prevention too. And this is kind of a 5-step planning process. Conduct community analysis, develop community partnerships, create an intervention strategy, implement the strategy, and evaluate the results. And we're going to talk a little bit more about each one of these here. Steps in public fire, life, and safety education planning. All right. Conducting community analysis. Process identifies fire and life safety problems. Every community has little different nuances about what they need. Demographics, characteristics of those at risk in the community. Who is our target audience here for this education? Develop community partnerships. Persons, groups, or organizations joined forces to address community risk. Most effective risk reduction efforts involve community in the planning and solution processes. Create an intervention strategy, beginning of the detailed work needed for development of successful fire or life safety risk reduction process. Most successful efforts involve combined prevention and interventions. Remember the 3 E's: education, engineering, and enforcement. Well, at this point, we're going to talk about mostly about education, maybe a little bit of engineering, but this is mostly focused on education. There's certainly no enforcement involved in this portion of the program. Implement the strategy, testing the interventions, and then putting the plan into action. Essential that implementation should be well coordinated and sequenced properly. And then, of course, you got to evaluate the result. Demonstrate that risk reduction efforts are reaching target populations, having the planned impact, and reducing loss, which is what I'm trying to do here. Home safety surveys. They were started in May of 1912 in Cincinnati, Ohio. This is a long time ago, even before my time. Comprehensive home and business inspection program. 1 year later, in May of 1913, there was a 60% reduction in fires. So they're kind of a pretty stark proof that this type of thing actually works. Home safety surveys, voluntary. The home safety survey, not an inspection. You don't want to call it an inspection. People don't want to be inspected, but surveyed, and a little different story. Training, fire service personnel trained on the details of the inspections, of course, and also on public relations. You don't want to go in and knock, slam on the door and say, we're here to inspect your home, move over. You want to get there. In fact, you have to get the permission to go in their home. Advanced publicity, emphasis on voluntary inspections. Community members train and participate as partners, rural and urban, doesn't matter. Member provided with identification, that's the member going door to door here, identification badges, and they should wear some kind of identifying clothing, let people know who they are. Details, identify potential risks in the home. Of course, smoke alarms are kind of like the number one thing and in fire safety in the homes is smoke alarms, home fire escape plan, and how to avoid risk. Home safety assessments, the benefits outweigh the challenges of conducting visits, and there are a lot of challenges in conducting these visits. There's a lot of homes to visit. Check smoke alarms and create a home fire escape plan is one of the things they want to make sure they do. Identify other potential fire risks within the home. One of the best means of promoting fire safety education, business and civic organizations, Rotary, Lions, Civitan, Kiwanis, Masons, Chamber of Commerce is a good place to do it. Parent-teacher organizations, fire buff organizations, people that really into the fire thing, they can help too. Communicate with all people. There's probably some non-English speaking people in your community, and there could be some deaf or hard of hearing people. They need to be communicated with too. Valuable aid in fire prevention efforts. Representatives of industry institutions attend fire safety programs during which all phases of fire prevention are discussed, especially valuable if aimed at a target audience. Fairs, booths for fire department, tours of recently burned dwellings, station open houses, fire prevention week activities. There's a lot more information on these things in the textbook, and you need to not just look at this, you need to read the textbook too. This is kind of just giving you an overview. Learn not to burn and wristwatch NFPA programs. The curriculum varies by who the target audience is, and also public service announcement. These two programs, though, are for children. You can look them up. Pre and post testing, curriculum use hazards in the home and personal safety. Of course, hazards in the home, among not just fire, but any kind of hazards in the home, personal safety. And it's a good idea for schools. Incorporate fire safety in other classes. History could show some things about historic fires. Home economics, you have cooking, right? You need to know a little bit about that. Class K fire extinguishers. Science class, certainly the fire science can into it. Civics, maybe not so much. Shop classes, definitely. If you're doing a woodworking or anything like that, fire safety is definitely a big issue there. So there's a lot of places you can incorporate fire safety into other classes. Studies in the classroom, part of a public fire education program. Overall program should include some contact at all grade levels. And of course, if you're going to do anything in the schools, you have to have close coordination with the school faculty. That is essential. Some of them don't want you to do anything that's not on their curriculum. Wildfires, they can be started by lightning or volcanic lava. But unfortunately, most are the result of human carelessness or malicious intentional fire setting. I lived in Southern California for 28 years, and the vast majority of the fires there were that human carelessness, and some of the worst ones were maliciously and intentionally set. Proactive communities, many communities that are at risk for severe wildfires are becoming more proactive in planning for and mitigating the hazards that lead to catastrophic fires. California Fire Safety Councils, there's a lot of them around. They're grassroots community level groups organized to reduce the risk of wildfires. Community Wildlife Protection Plan, CWPP, is a local collaborative planning process based on the needs of people living in wildfire threatened areas that address specific issues such as wildfire response, hazard mitigation, community preparedness, and structure protection. One of the quotes come up, one of the people involved in this says, waiting for huge fires, spending millions to put them out, and then replacing destroyed property is clearly the least intelligent option. Thinning forests and modifying vegetation in and around communities, as well as hardening structures in those communities, seems the wiser. And that's, I think, a good idea in any place that's prone to wildfires. Local community collaborations, government and community collaborations. Cincinnati, Ohio established neighborhood enhancement programs. This was a 90-day collaborative effort with city departments and improved the quality of life for neighborhood residents. Other cities adopted these types of programs. This is government and community collaborations, which is usually a pretty good idea. Publicity programs, contests are good. Promotional aids and activities, fairs, festivals, parades, banners in public places. There's a lot of publicity programs you can do for fire safety. This is one. There you go, big sign in town what the fire danger is today. If it says extreme, I think you want to be real careful what you're doing outside. And this is an example of a fireman talking to children and showing them how to establish what their egress paths are in their house, escape plan. And this is a fire day type of activity in a community. Doesn't look like it. It's like a kid pointing a finger at somebody riding a bike, but it's okay. Media publicity, media releases must be interesting, direct, and to the point. Public service spots are pretty effective at getting out fire prevention messages. Fire prevention officers should develop rapport with media offices, and encouragement to report fires accurately is good too. People don't panic when you call 911. Fire prevention publicity, radio, television, internet, and of course now on social media. Smoke alarm programs, mainstay of home safety programs, give you an early warning when fire occurs. And some smoke alarms aren't properly maintained. A lot of them aren't. They should be tested regularly and replace batteries. It says yearly, but they recommend every 6 months. And there are some long life 10-year batteries out there too. Not a bad idea. Fire Prevention Week began by President Woodrow Wilson as Fire Prevention Day on October 9th, 1920. Just so happened that date was commemorating the Great Chicago Fire of 1871. Aggressive activities aimed at all segments of the population: radio, television, newspaper. Volunteer fire departments are great. They have a range of skills, from education to home repair to other fire prevention activities. They usually do not participate in mandatory fire safety inspections, though. Some members are better suited, though, for public education rather than fire suppression, but there's a range of skills in volunteer fire departments. Review of successful programs, factors leading to success, leaders of the implementation effort. You need leaders of the implementation effort. Careful planning includes specific fire safety problems, partners to help overcome barriers, marketing to appropriate audiences. Vision 2020 is a strategic fire project, and that's where communities get to present their fire safety programs to a larger scale of audience. Summary: public fire and safety education is good through the government and civic organizations, schools, community events, TV, radio, social media. There's a lot of way to get the word out on education. And that's what this whole module is about, is education. But that's all we're going to do for right now.